Welcome everybody to the Scale Up Show. This is your host, Ryan Staley. I have a very, very special guest with me today. I have Prabhjot Singh. Prabhjot is the serial entrepreneur who started multiple for-profit social enterprise and nonprofit ventures. He serves as the president and CEO of Pyze, and they are venture capital backed leader in terms of digital transformation analytics. Welcome. Happy to have you on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm pumped too, man. We were talking a little pre-show, a little pre-game like I always do, and your go-to-market strategy is really unique. So I'm excited to share this with the world. So before we begin, let's do a quick revenue rundown before we get too deep into your story. Okay. So you can tell us where you're at in your journey in terms of revenue?
Sure. Yeah, so we've been in market for about 3, 4 years. We'll probably do healthy 8 figures this year.
Nice.
I'm pumped. You caught me in a good week. We just found out we won, a 7 figure contract with the Air Force just this
Nice.
week. So it's I'm excited. So this is a good start to the year for us.
Seven-figure contracts are huge wins. I love that. I love hearing that. And on top it off, to add an extra layer of difficulty, it's with the government, right? So that's like special points for making that happen.
That's right. We've just been working on it for last 2 decades, right? As I say.
All right, excellent. So walk us through your go-to-market strategy, high level, just like what's your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in partners, right? Especially when you're a startup, right? There's a few dimensions that you've got to get right, right? You've got to get the product market fit right? Being able to sort of solve a key problem, right,
Mm-hmm.
for a customer, and then once you do that, the harder part is the distribution strategy, right? Like we know that, typically the best product may not even win, right? It's the company that can get the best distribution that typically wins, right? Now, if you've got the most amazing product and you've got a winner distribution strategy, well, then you're going to kill it, right? It's going to be a unicorn, and and it's hard, right, for any startup to get the attention of large enterprises, right? So if you're playing in the enterprise sphere where you're selling to Fortune 100, Global 2000, right? Like good luck getting a meeting with a VP level person, right? That's hard,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
just
it's
because
definitely
they got a
hard.
lot, right? They've got a lot going on. So if you can connect with a trusted partner, or you can help a partner of theirs be more strategic, deliver greater value while solving a problem for them, well, then you're gold. And that's the approach that we've taken. Right. Our focus is on process improvement. We help enterprises improve the operational efficiency of their key business processes, right? So for a bank, it might be someone wants to open a bank account. There's a ton of steps that have to happen, right? From someone showing up at a branch or filling out an application online, right, to when that first deposit can be made in that bank account. There's multiple people that have to touch that process. There's bottlenecks, there's friction points right along the way. So what we do is we do a MRI of that end-to-end process, right? And we'll identify, oh, this is where you have a bottleneck. Here's an opportunity to automate. Here's an opportunity to conduct better training, right? Here's best practices you can cross-pollinate from this region to this region, right? That's the kind of work that we do for large enterprises, right? Like the U.S. Air Force, Fortune 500 banks, so forth. And so when we were thinking about our go-to-market strategy, we tried a bunch of things, right? Most of them didn't work, but where we saw traction and where we saw stickiness was two types of partnerships. One was with the platforms that are being used to build modern applications, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of large enterprises are kind of, because of COVID, because of just sort of where we are in the digital transformation journey, people are going from these on-prem legacy systems to more modern low-code platforms in the cloud, right? So platforms like Pega, OutSystems, Mendix, right, Appian. So we partnered with these platforms to provide plug-and-play analytics, right? So the story is Mr. Enterprise or Ms. Enterprise customer will give you an understanding of what your legacy system looks like, right? So you can kind of identify, oh, here's where I have process inefficiencies. And as you're migrating them to these modern systems, you can actually fix that, right? Not just sort of take existing shitty process. Well, you can beep that out if you want, and modernize it, but you can actually fix the issues that are broken as you're modernizing, right? So that helps the customer. It adds more value to the platform, and it becomes a source of lead flow for us in partnership, right? Very organic partnership for us. And then the second point of partnership was the global system integrators that actually do that work of the transformation journey, right? So companies like Tech Mahindra, Virtusa, right? These are billion-dollar companies, Coforge, that are enabling the largest enterprise in the world to undergo this digital transformation. We're partnering with them because they've got the ear of the customer. They might have hundreds or thousands of people that are deployed in these accounts, and they can directly leverage our capability to ensure success of these projects, deliver greater value to the customer. So it kind of becomes a win-win-win scenario for everyone involved.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could easily see that, especially with the digital transformation. I mean, they're focused on it anyways, and I assume your solution just accelerates it, right? So, and stabilizes it long term. So, it sounds like a great model. How large is your team?
So we're about 35 people globally. Our core engineering team is well, we were in the Bay Area primarily, but that was before COVID, right? So we had a bunch of people move out of the Bay Area, right? Texas, Nevada, right? Even up to Sacramento, right? All over. We've got a lot of remote folks all over the world now, right? UK, India, Canada, and so it works pretty well, and we're growing pretty fast this year. So any of your listeners out there, if you're a good engineer, have background in business development, sales, marketing, hit me up.
Catch it, touch them all, touch them all. I mean, that, and I know I already hit that you're backed, that you're venture backed, correct? As
That's
well.
right. That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
we've got some really good and supportive venture funds on board. Illuminate Ventures, Benjamin Global Ventures, Shasta Ventures, Correlation Ventures, right? So these are all Bay Area companies. But yeah, like it's always dicey when you take venture money, but it's been a great experience for us because they've opened up their networks, and was really helpful in the early days.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like you're well back there, and so let's get into your story because I know you've had a really unique journey to get to this point. You're in the corporate world and then in the entrepreneur world. Can you just walk us through that? So how do you get to an almost eight-figure company right now, closing $1 million deals for your business that helps automate different processes and components? Like, how did you get here? Like, what was the journey?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun journey, right? It's certainly lots of ups and downs, like as all journeys go. I out of college started working at Citigroup, right? So out of college, I joined Citigroup. They had this management associate program that John Reed, who was the president of Citibank at that time, came out of. So it was like a darling program where they rotate you to different parts of the bank, right? Give you lots of management training, and you kind of come out like a VP or AVP in the bank, kind of on the management track. So I did that for about a year. It was fun, right? Got to see kind of different parts of the bank. I ran MIS for Citibank.com, right? Kind of, and, and and in those early days of the internet, right? So I'm talking like 2000, right?
Yeah.
Uh, if you remember, websites were not stable, right? You try to go and sign up for a credit card, and the site would go kaput, or you try to rent a car, and you'd get kind of like just the browser would crash or something, and no one knew why, because you had these monolithic applications running on the back end, Java, .NET applications. So there's this tiny company called Wiley Technology in the Bay Area that just raised their Series A funding. It was like maybe 11, 12 people, right? And they they found my resume somewhere, called me up, say, come on out to the West Coast. And I'd never been to California. So I was like, sure. So we hit it off. I joined them, right? Became like employee number 14 or something like that. And we grew that business to about 60 million in revenue.
Nice. That's awesome.
And it was great. I mean, I was super junior, obviously, but I got to do a lot of different things, right, along the way. And when we got bought by Computer Associates, right, I took over as sort of the VP of marketing. I helped integrate the sales and marketing organizations. And I learned a lot on that journey with Wiley. And one of the things that kind of a bunch of us that went through that experience sort of said was, look, direct sales is great, but you want to try and avoid it as much as you can, because
Mhm.
it was just such an expensive endeavor, right? We got the business to about 60 million, but we were not profitable, and we didn't really have a line of sight to being profitable. And that's why the company got sold. And then when at Computer Associates, um, we did the integration with their sales organization. We were able to grow that business from like 60 million to like 250 million in the next
Wow.
3 years, right before I left. And you can do that because CA had like 5,000 salespeople, right? They had a whole army that could just go and just sell. And I enjoyed that. It was a very different experience, right? Kind of scaling the business and everything that goes along with that. And then from there, I kind of took the learnings that I had. I took some time off. I did a social enterprise, which was fun. And there also I used the partnership mindset to kind of scale the business. And then when we started Pyze, we had this idea of taking the learnings that we had, and really, if you think about what Pyze does today, right, we're doing what Wiley did on the technical side, right, to kind of figure out the bits and bytes of the application that were broken, but we're
Hmm.
doing that at the business process layer, right?
Oh, okay.
Where do you have issues in your business process that you can actually solve, and get better operational efficiency?
Is that what inspired you to create Pies? Like that whole model? You're like, hey, there's still a gap on the business side, or
Yeah, I'd always thought that there was a gap on the business side. That's something that I wanted to tackle. When we initially started Fives, we were focused more on the B2C side.
hmm.
Uh, but there's just as we kind of rolled that product out, we started getting thousands and thousands of sort of B2C developers using our product. We had good traction, but we didn't see a line of sight to scaling that business, right? But then I always had this in the back of my head that, hey, we could we could focus on the enterprise, and that's a space I know really well, right? So kind of
Right.
going back to your roots, and folks on our team know enterprise software really well, so that was very natural. Sort of, you could think of it a pivot, right, in some regards. But that's what we're doing now, and we're having a great time.
That's awesome. I mean, obviously you've went through a lot of rocket ships. Like, let me ask you this. So, what's the hardest thing right now? From scaling from 1 million to 8 figures. Like, what's the toughest thing to do when you're trying to scale from 1 to 8 figures?
Yeah, it's really about the team, right? Like if you can get to a million in revenue, you've kind of got a model that works, right? You've got to kind of make sure as you kind of go to that next 10x of revenue, you've got the team in place that can ensure that your customers are successful, right?
Hmm.
And I think where a lot of companies falter is not having uh, the processes well defined that ensure success, right? Because, like, look, I don't think of product market fit as necessarily a revenue figure,
Hmm.
right? Like people will say, oh, you get to 1 million in ARR and you've got kind of product market fit. It's really about customer success, right? How successful you can make your existing customers. Uh, are they renewing? Are you increasing your footprint in those accounts, right? Are you helping them solve the problems that they came to you with, right? So if you can do that and you can demonstrate that year over year, well, then you've got uh, a process that you can scale, right? And then it's about the people to scale that process.
Yeah, there's. It's funny because Deloitte did, and this was about a year and a half ago, just like a survey of business leaders in Fortune 1000 organizations, and one of the things they brought up is like, what are your top three buying criteria, right? And one of them was it's customized to me. The second was it's simple to implement, right? So there's not a big lift to implement it. And then last but not least was basically what you just discussed right there, right? Like how do I, it's results, right? And they're looking more and more increasingly, the whole entire market is looking to almost have performance metrics included in contracts on results, which is sharp if you think about it, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. And look, like I don't think I've ever given a customer a proposal that didn't have an ROI model associated with it. Right. Like it's like, hey, and that ROI model is jointly developed, right, with the
right,
with the
exactly.
customer. And yeah, like it might be a little inflated or whatever, right? Uh
We put a
but
little
you've
lipstick
got
on it, right? Yeah, you might dress it up a
yeah,
little bit, or whatever.
sure. But for sure, like when someone's making an investment in your software, right, they're putting their job on the line in some
Yep.
ways, right? And especially when you're a startup, right? There's that whole thing saying of no one got fired for buying IBM, right? Which used to be back in the day. I don't know if it's still true today, but if you're convincing someone to purchase your software, you should be making a commitment of for every dollar that you give me, I'm going to give you X dollars in benefit, right? And then have the ability to measure that, because if you don't have the ability to measure that, you're at risk basically.
Oh yeah, definitely. So what would you say now that you're kind of approaching that eight-figure mark this year? What's your single biggest challenge you're running into in terms of growing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got to verticalize our approach to the market, and that's something that like yeah, we sell into kind of very verticalized, specialized spaces, right? Financial services, government, manufacturing, right? Where we're just sort of seeing more and more interest in healthcare, like we are talking about, during the pregame, um, and as you get deeper into these verticals, you've got to have really deep understanding, right? Of like if you're going to go and have a conversation with someone who does warehouse management, right,
Right.
and help them improve their warehousing processes, you got to be able to have a conversation with them and not sound like a fifth grader, right? Like
Right.
because this is what they do every day, all day long. So so having domain experts that can have that conversation, that can help with sort of the right solutioning is important. Having kind of the product, as you mentioned from that Deloitte study, right? Easy to implement, and when you think about that in a vertical context, right? The lingo, the jargon, right? The capabilities, the use cases. should support that vertical. And the more you can get that to be out of the box without customization, right? Because yeah, people say they want to customize for me, but they'd much rather it was customized out of the box, right? So
Yeah. Somebody was the first me like 2 years ago, so this is like the 15th version of or 100th version of the me customization. So it's really smooth.
that's right. That's right. So I think those are kind of the business challenges,
Okay.
right? That we're focused on as we move forward here.
Okay. Yeah, and that's natural. I mean, based on your deal sizes and the larger deal sizes, I mean, that was, I mean, because I've sat with so many Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 buyers, and that was one of the things they consistently came up with is they're like, hey, it's like amateur hour here with some of your competitors because they come in and they give a general blanket pitch and they don't know the specifics. And here's the thing that what's really interesting too is like people that really, really knock the cover off the ball, what I've seen at least, is not only do they understand the verticals, but then they understand the nuances of basically the ownership structure, right? Like the pressures that a VC backed company has versus a PE backed company versus a publicly traded company, because those are other like layers and nuances. So you got like the verticals and all the requirements, then you got the ownership structure, and that's kind of like the invisible force that pushes down in terms of the entire executive team. So
That's right, and aligning with business goals, right? Like if you're going in and talking to, let's say, insurance company, and their goal is that, hey, we need to reduce the cost to process claims by 50%, right? And
right.
we're seeing a lot of requirements like that, right?
Mm.
Whether it's in manufacturing or healthcare or BFSI, where people have these really aggressive goals, um, because what they're looking to do is scale their business operations while reducing costs, right? By leveraging automation, whether it's RPA or some other automation capability. How do you improve straight through processing? So for certain types of cases, maybe we don't need a human to touch them even, right? And they can go straight through. So being able to go in and understand what their specific business goal is, and then understanding what are the investments that they're making and how you can fit into that kind of landscape is really, really important.
No.
Um, and yeah, I think that's the, if you can't have those conversations, you're not going to be successful. And one of the things, going back to kind of the go-to-market model, right? As we've sort of built up those capabilities, and we are building up those capabilities in-house, we lean on our partners, right? That are already working with customers, because they already have those domains, right?
Mm.
Expertise in-house, and oftentimes they're the tip of the spear that are bringing into those accounts, right? So we can be kind of the product specialists, and the partners the domain specialists.
Okay. That's good. So, oh, that's so good. So walk me through that. It's the perfect segue. So it's so funny. And the reason why I'm saying this is so good, I literally I talked to Steve Phillips yesterday, who's the founder, and they're about 50 million in revenue. And he's like, that's how his whole company started. Is basically he was the domain expertise, but he didn't have the technical expertise. So he found a co-founder that had that. So it's funny that you split it up that way as well, with partners. So walk us through your framework for partnerships and how to implement a go-to-market strategy with that, what you look for, and I would just love to hear it. So if you could break that down into 3, maybe 4, 5, 6 points, it'd be awesome to hear.
Yeah, I mean, so look, first of all, with any sort of partner, you've got to kind of, you have to treat it like a sales exercise, right? Like you've got kind of, hey, who are the list of potential partners that are a good fit, right, for your business, right? We did that, and once you have that understanding of, you then sort of have to engage with the the right person, whether it's from a domain perspective. We'll focus a lot on digital transformation practices, or low code platform practices, right? Modernization practices, within these large kind of consulting companies that we partner with, and then you've got to find someone who's has a pain that you can solve, right? That kind of
Hmm.
recognizes that, okay, hey, this is a gap that your software can fill for our customers and for our practice overall. And then from there, right, you've kind of go through uh, a lot of diligence, right? Like for us, we had to go through a lot of diligence with these bigger partners, with smaller partners. You can sort of say, okay, hey, let's find a first customer, let's make them successful together. We know how we can work, right? But if you're going and talking to, a system integrators that are doing $5-10 billion a year, well, they're going to want to check you out before they take you on that first date, right?
Yeah.
In a real meaningful way. So you kind of have to go through that diligence exercise, and then you've got to put some numbers on the board, right? Actually, typically show this is how we can partner together in an initial account or two, right? Which then becomes sort of the proof point that you can use to kind of formulate the partnership in general, and then and then you have to really initiate a enablement exercise, right? And part of that is marketing, right? Internal marketing,
Right.
and then external marketing, right? And then there's technical enablement, sales enablement, blah 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 blah. Developing sort of core competency within the partner, like a center of excellence for your business, and then oftentimes figuring out where that center of excellence lives, right? It's not trivial within large organizations, and then kind of slowly building momentum, right? And as you get more and more wins, you can develop more and more momentum, and and the partnership kind of becomes beneficial for everyone involved, right?
Excellent. So I think that's a great framework. So let me just recap that and play that back for you. So I like how you compare it to sales. It's like almost like a sales exercise, right? So you got to find the right prospects, dream 100 partners, right? What's the pain that you could solve? You have the diligence if they're a big company, right? The multi-billions are just way bigger than you. Otherwise, you can kind of co-partner it. Hey, let's try this out with a smaller mutual customer. Put the numbers in projections, try it out as a proof, then create the enablement internally and externally, which I love that you hit on both of those. Create a center of excellence, and then slowly but surely build that momentum, that trust. And did I get it all? I was taking notes. I wanted to make sure I had it all.
I think you got it right, and it could take anywhere between 3 months to a year, right? Just
Okay.
like in terms of start to getting something deployed at an actual customer, right? Depending on the size of the partner and uh, sort of the diligence that they might require.
Okay. And what would you say is the single biggest mistake that organizations make when they're trying to leverage this model or create this model or implement it, I should say?
Yeah, I'd say putting the cart before the horse, right? Because you've got to make sure there's a there, and the only way you can do that is by if you've got kind of mutual customers, or you've got places that you worked before, right, with that partner, whether it was directly or tangentially, you might have some of those proof points. But like if you're gonna as a startup, if you're gonna invest a year into a partnership, right, like you better be darn sure that it's gonna generate the results that you want, right? Otherwise, like that, there's huge opportunity cost to doing that.
Yeah. No, that's a really great point. Yeah, I mean that could be the downfall of a company, right? If they're focused on that and it doesn't occur. So what and then on an ongoing basis, like in terms of management cadence, what do you recommend once you get the machine set up and launched?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have partners where we have daily touch points with, right? Because it's not because when you're dealing with big companies, it's not a monolith, right? Like teams are distributed. There's different groups that it's just like selling into an account, right? Like you land in a particular place, you work with a specific group, whether it's business or IT, right? And then what do? You get a referral to another division, or right, you broadcast the success that you had with an internal case study, and you look for another use case, right, for your software. So with partners, it's very similar, because if you've done a lot of work to, I was just talking to a partner today. I'll give you an example where we're focused on helping them with digital transformation, right? But they also do a lot of BPO work, for instance, right? And halfway through the conversation, they're like, "Oh, this could really help us with cost cutting, right, or cost takeout of the managed services contracts that we have, for instance, process improvement, right, for internal operations." Which isn't a use case that we thought about or talked about previously.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it reminds me of like an enterprise deal. Like literally, it's like very very similar parallel process that you have to set up. So now that you've been through both models, like what would you say is the increase in benefit of trying the partnership route versus the direct sales model? And I know it sounded like you didn't have the best experience if you weren't profitable. I've seen lots of companies are massively profitable with the enterprise motion, but like based on your experience, what would you say is like the uptick that you've seen just in your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about scale, right? Like if you can get to scale, uh, right, the unit economics will work out, right? So how do you get to sort of scale? And yeah, you can go partner or direct. With partner, you just get a lot more leverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's much more cost effective as a go-to-market model. You don't have to have a big sales organization, right? And so there's obviously cost benefit to that. What you lose out with is control of opportunities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not the one that's sitting next to the customer,
Right.
or right, directly selling to the customer, right? You're dependent on someone else, so you've got to build that trust, right? And you've got to have sort of faith that they're gonna uh, prioritize you, right, versus the five or other 10, whatever, however many competing priorities that they might have, right? So that part is something that requires calibration
Mm-hmm.
to have that leverage, but then also be able to get involved in actually interacting with the customer, right? Because for a partner to give you that ability, they've got to have trust on their side as well, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
completely.
so I think those are, yeah. I mean, I think those are the the high level pros and cons.
Okay. I mean, that was an absolute awesome way to kind of break it down. Very detailed, very, very specific. So I appreciate that. We're just about up on time, so I'm going to do a quick founder fire for you, and
All
then
right.
we'll wrap things up. So, few quick questions for you. Who's your favorite founder or CEO that you follow right now, or think is doing an amazing job?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a big fan of Elon, obviously. Right. I mean, just because probably for different reasons than most other people. Um, right. I mean, I'm impressed by just his sheer will and determination, right, of through the ups and downs. And he's shaken up industries, and has built these amazing companies. But I think like what has impressed me the most is his ability to go all in, right, to kind of make these companies successful that you know even by startup odds probably should have failed, right?
Yeah, he's a stud. He gets
Yeah,
brought up a lot on the show. So,
sure. Yeah, of
um,
course.
what's your favorite book you've read over the past couple of years?
So I just finished rereading the Foundation series, which is right written by Asimov, who kind of invented science fiction. That for me, that's a good escape from the
Yeah.
craziness of my day life. And Apple just released a TV series, right, based on that that book. So I brushed up on it. It was great.
What's the TV series they released?
It's called The Foundation.
Oh, it
So
is called the Found. Okay, I didn't see that.
yeah,
Okay, let's
yeah,
check it out. All right.
yeah.
And then, what's a favorite online tool that you have that you can't live without?
Oh, it's got to be Slack, hands down.
Really? Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm on Slack 24/7, I think.
Okay. And then last but not least, what is advice you would give to your early startup self, right? So when you're just starting your first startup, what advice would you give knowing what you know now?
Everything takes longer than you think it will, so plan for it.
I feel like that message is for me. I always want stuff to happen faster than it does. So thank
That's
you.
right.
It was a pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate you. Where can people find you? Where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, check out Pyze.com. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I, would love to chat with your listeners if there's a use case for our process intelligence to improve your business operations. Look me up.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Thanks.